I'm Christopher Sheehan Jr. And I honestly, I hate doing this. I hate getting up in front of the camera like this, but I want to try to convince you of why my book, A Guy's Guide to Being a Classic Game Show Fan, is worth the $35 price on Amazon because unfortunately that's just how things are and you have to charge a certain amount of money. And yeah, so we're just going to do that tonight, see if anybody will join us within these next few, hopefully, minutes. Um, I'm nervous as hell doing this, I have to admit. Um, so we'll see what goes on. I mean, I want to talk to you about why you should buy this book, what generation should buy this book. I mean, really, anybody should read this book, in all honesty. I designed it in mind with people that maybe are not interested in game shows or not interested in genre. I think it's very important in a sense to preserve history, at least in regards to television. I mean, history in general, but television as a whole. I'm 29. Just celebrated my 29th birthday on that July 16th, the day the book was released. So we'll see. I mean, so far the book, I have to admit, I'm pleasantly surprised by everybody's generous support. I always said if I sold one copy outside of the family, I would be happy. And I've done, let's put it this way more than that. Uh, so hopefully somebody will tune in. I mean, I don't know what to expect, but I would like to see at least one person join this, hopefully. But I think, game shows as a whole, and I'll get more into the reason why I wrote this. But it's mainly just out of love. That's really what it's all about. It's about love. It's love for my grandmother that, passed away a few years ago, and I had to see the effects of her passing away, and that really, in many ways, I'm gonna try to not curse, but I have to at this point. It fucked me up in certain ways. Um, I'm always nervous around people. I'm always quiet around people. That's just the way I am. But we're gonna attempt this anyway, because I wrote this book out of love, out of respect, out of admiration for something that's near and dear to my heart that my grandmother and we've always bonded over. I mean, I have so many memories of watching The Price is Right with Bob Barker. And, I was like about 7, 8 years old, 9 years old, whatever the case may be. But it's those kind of memories that inspired me to write this. And if I'm rambling, I apologize. It's just it's nerves. But but yeah, we're gonna get into this a little bit anyway, and hopefully it'll be all right. Um, Thank you for the comment, James. Is that your name? Yeah, James. Um, yeah, I'm not good at this, people. I have to admit, I'm not what you would call camera ready. I mean, I'm quite frankly, I know I'm fugly looking. I'm not. I don't necessarily deny that. But with all that said, we're going to at least attempt this anyway, I should say. So I have some things that I'd like to talk about tonight. Uh, Hello there, Canfield 7119. Appreciate you watching. Thank you for support. We're going to talk a little bit about the guy's guide to being a classic game show fan, and we're going to see how this. My goal, I want to clarify this. My goal is really to have anybody read this, whether you're a Gen Z or even I think it's Gen Alpha comes after that. I don't know exactly. I'm not up to date on all those terms. But even if you're a baby boomer or if you're, millennial or any of these other things, I wrote it for anybody and everybody that would like to um, read about the history of this stuff. And there's many names throughout this book that you're going to hear about that are quite frankly, they should have more recognition and more credit than what they deserve. For example, Bill Cullen, you will hear that name. You will hear, I mentioned earlier, Bob Barker, Gene Rayburn. There are a whole endless supply of game show hosts that deserve recognition and credit for all of this stuff. Mark Goodson and Bill Todman obviously are the ones that are behind all of this. Without them, we wouldn't have Family Feud and Price is Right and Match Game and all these shows. So, we shall see how this goes again. I have a few people watching this. I'm very grateful. Thank you very much. To tell the truth, yes, that's right. That was actually created by Bob Stewart, but he was involved in Goodson Todman for many years before he went on to create Pyramid out of his own company. And there's some trivia about him too within the book that maybe I'll share tonight, maybe I won't. Maybe you'll just have to buy the book and find out. But I want to clarify something, that I am not a historian, I'm not a teacher, nothing to that effect. I am purely just a fan. That's what I am. I've always been a fan. So I'm sure, because I'm not perfect, I don't walk on water, I'm sure there are many inaccuracies here and there. I'm not, again, it was meant as a tribute, not necessarily gospel. So I guess, how many people? We got a decent amount right now. So I think we'll get into it a little bit. First things first, the background about Mark Goodson. He grew up in a era of the Great Depression when many people, you have to look at it, nobody had anything then. Everything was taken from people. You didn't know when your next meal was. There wasn't any assistance back then. There wasn't any of that. But his family and him, they muddled through. They struggled. They owned a chicken farm that went bankrupt. And it's quite amazing. His story, they came from two different backgrounds, him and Bill Todman. Bill Todman was definitely born with like a silver spoon in his mouth. But Mark Goodson was a rags to riches story. He was the embodiment of the American dream, in all honesty. He was the guy that, he picked himself up by his bootstraps and then did all this grinding and all that. And then next thing you know, when he passed away in 1992, he was worth over $450 million. That's a pretty good, I would consider that the American dream. So we'll see. You'll learn more about these guys because the book is, again, it's a tribute to them. You'll learn a little bit about my grandmother, who, like I said, she passed away, unfortunately. You miss her. I miss her very much. It's very hard. I still think about her. But I think of all the happy memories, though, and that's one of the reasons why I wrote this. I wanted to write this as a loving tribute to all parties involved. And, with certain hosts, for example, I have a tendency to favor certain hosts over others. Certain shows over others. Now, I don't necessarily consider that like I'm trying to think of the word. It's hard doing this live. I don't consider, I don't want to really, I have a whole list of things I don't really want to give it away because it'll spoil it. But, yeah, I just, there's certain hosts that I like better than others, or certain shows that I like better than others, and that's what this whole book is. It's all based on my opinion. So my opinion, you're not necessarily going to agree with it. It's not going to necessarily be your opinion. But we're all going to, what I want you to take from this is to learn from my opinion, to at least see my perspective of it. And I think we can all agree that that's one of the things that makes this world a great place, especially this country that we live in. Hopefully most of you are from the United States, hopefully. But that's one of the things that makes this country great, is that we all can have differences of opinions. And that's just I think that's wonderful, in all honesty. So I want to talk. I guess I'm going to talk a little bit more about certain shows, perhaps. I'm not going to touch any of the big stuff. I don't want to touch like the What's My Lines or the Match Games, things like that. I'm probably going to do little shows here and there. But trying to see which show I should start with. Maybe how about The Name's the Same? That was a pretty decent show. So The Name's the Same. I'm sure many of you don't know what this is, or you probably haven't. I'm sure maybe some of you have heard the name. It was a panel show that aired back in the 50s. It was done live, because that's how things were done back then. It was all done live. So black and white, these were all preserved on kinescopes. And yeah, I mean, I think it was honestly one of the most underrated panel games of that live television era. But that's just my opinion. And so I did a whole entry about it, like I did with all the shows, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about Robert Q. Lewis, who was he hosted the majority of these episodes. And I think Robert, I think he always had a certain charm about him. He was always very inquisitive. He had like a type of humor that was definitely 1950s style. Like, it was a little more dry than regular game show hosts in the later decades. But it wasn't, overall, like, it's still relatable, at least in my opinion. It's still relatable today. And basically the object of this game was that you had to guess the name of a contestant who had a famous name. So, like, the example I use in this book was Mickey Mantle, because at that time he was a big basketball. He was a big baseball player for the Yankees, and he was one of the greats. So I go into all this about Robert Q. Lewis and him hosting the show, and the prizes back then too about live television. People should keep this in mind as well. People should they should say, what am I trying to say? They should keep in mind that, like, prizes back then were not a lot of money. I mean, compared to today, you did a show for $50 or whatever, $25, maybe if you were lucky, like What's My Line, they did $50, but I've Got a Secret did, I think, 80, and that's what it wasn't really about the prizes, though, and I write this in a book. It was more about the fact of being seen. And that's really, you wanted to be able to you wanted to be able to have your children or your neighbors or your grandkids or whatever watch from the TV at home. And so that's the way it was. But yeah, I mean, I just happen to enjoy the show. I think I didn't start watching it until later, when Buzzer started showing it. They started showing it, I believe, in like 2018. And I'll try to speak up. I don't have a microphone on me right now, but hopefully you all can hear. If anybody's still watching, hopefully you're able to understand what I'm saying. It's a little difficult. My voice is a little shot. But basically, the panel shows, the name's the same. I didn't get started watching it until 2018, and quite frankly, I thought it was a very solid format. I think it had everything going in its favor, and it had a nice, like, 5-year, it ran about 4 years, 5 years, from 51 to 55. So for the majority of those episodes, it was hosted by, again, Robert Q. Lewis, who I think he was definitely an underrated host. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else more to say about it. I mean, I don't necessarily want to read every single thing that I wrote, but the gist of what I'm trying to say is that these panel shows, especially that one in particular, was very amusing. It had a clever premise, and I think even nowadays it could be remade if they did it the proper way, which I get into that later in the book. Unfortunately, that there is no proper way anymore. There seems to not be any kind of standard in the television industry. And I don't know, again, I've never been involved with the television industry. I'm just a fan. That's all I am. That's all I'll ever be. But we'll see. We'll see. I mean, I never lose hope with anything. I mean, I've rock bottom so many times in my life that I figure why, there's no point in losing hope because you're always going to gain something. If that makes any sense, I don't know. But I just think anybody from any generation could watch these shows. I don't think whether you're a Gen Z or you're a baby boomer or whatever the case may be. I mean, I think you're certainly able to enjoy any of these shows, whether they're 50, 60, 70 years old. I don't think, uh, I don't think, what do you call, I don't think any, in particular show necessarily expires. I mean, I think everything has its own sense of humor that stays relevant even today. So, I'm seeing something here. I just donated. What was that? 50. Listen. I didn't ask for your money. I appreciate that, but you don't have to do that. I'm not looking for money like that. I just want you to read the book. In all honesty, I don't. But I'm very grateful for that. Thank you. You try in life, and I notice like I'm only 29 and I've had my fair share of struggles, and I know I'm going off on like a little bit of a rant here, but thankfully, like nothing like drugs or alcohol, nothing like that. But everybody has their own demons, you understand? Everybody has their own things, their own like quirks about them, their own things that they hate, and you know, and that's just how I am. I've always had to try to be comfortable with who I am, and one of the things, as corny as this will sound, that's gotten me through, at least through an entertainment perspective, is watching game shows, classic game shows. I don't know what it is about them. I don't know, maybe there's something that's soothing about it. There's something has like a personal touch where they go out of their way to include you in the game, in a sense, especially shows like The Price is Right, where you could play at home, or Match Game, or Family Feud, things like that. So I wrote this book just as out of pure respect, out of pure love for a genre, and out of pure love for people that have passed. Even my late uncle, he was into game shows, but he was more of like a history buff. My Uncle Paul, you'll read a little bit about him in the book as well. He was more of a history buff. Like, he liked the Civil War and Gettysburg. He would go to Gettysburg, that kind of thing. He was into that sort of thing. But it's just when you write all this stuff, you start going down memory lane and all that, and you're like, wow, these people aren't even here anymore to see this, And so it's just it's a happy and a sad thing at the same time. It's very strange, but it's it's a part of life, and that's what we have to deal with, unfortunately. But anyway, the name's the same. I'm getting back to that. I'm getting off topic, but so basically every show, from what I've understood, every episode of The Name's the Same has been preserved. Now, whether it's Kinescope, I believe that more than likely that's what it would be, is Kinescope, because that's how they used to preserve television. Basically, for those of you that are unaware, they used to hold a camera up to a monitor, and they would record the monitor, and then that way they could show it on the West Coast or in other time zones. So that's how they would do it, because back then, they didn't have videotape, and it was too expensive when it did eventually come in. And even then, a lot of people don't realize that a lot of the videotapes were being erased and reused to cut costs, for the price. So I keep going off here. I want to talk about other things, and I keep going. But basically, I say in the book, I say you should watch The Names the Same because it offers a charming and surprisingly insightful look at everyday people who happen to share names with famous figures. So it's a fun little show, a family show. Anybody could watch it. It doesn't matter what you are, who you are, and it's still relevant in my opinion. It's still a show that carries a sense of history, and that's really what game shows are in many ways. They're about history. And I don't know. I mean, I don't really have anything more to say about The Names the Same, other than if you would like to hear more about it, rather, check out A Guy's Guide to Being a Classic Game Show Fan, a tribute to Goodson and Todman Productions. This is let's see if I can get it in the camera. Right there. It's available on Amazon for $35.99. I can't believe I did over 20 minutes of this already. I'm surprised by that. But, I don't know, should I keep going? Maybe I should keep talking. I don't know. I'm not... I seem to have people interested. Maybe I should keep going. But, I could talk about Gene Rayburn. I could talk about Bob Barker. Bob Barker was a huge part of why I got interested in game shows. I mean, I remember, like I said, sitting there with my grandma and Louise. That's, right all about that. People on the motorcycles all the time. But, I remember that, and I just remember being, like, even as a kid, I mean, I was like 7, 8 years old watching The Price is Right, and I remember thinking to myself, like, what a pro Bob was. He really put the pro and professional. He knew every little bit of, like, how an MC should be polished, how he should walk across the stage, how he should reveal a price. I mean, all kind of things like that. And so when it comes to that, I'm just very grateful that even though I was young, that I still have those memories and that I was able to experience that. Let's see. I'm trying to think what else. I mean, the only thing I didn't do with Price is Right, for instance, and I didn't really want to talk about the big shows, but I'll mention it briefly. I didn't go down like the whole rabbit hole of pricing games, because I even make the joke in there. I said that we would be here longer than Bob Barker's 35-year tenure if we were to do all the pricing games, which I think at last count, I think there was like 110 or something to that effect. It's quite a bit. I mean, active and retired, but it is quite a bit of pricing games, and so I mean, who knows? I just want to say this about the book. I'm rambling. I'm going off on topics and all that. I'm not good at this, guys. I'm really not. Writing the book was the easier part. It was actually kind of nice. It was, in a way, it was like therapy, therapeutic. But I'm not good at any of this stuff. But what am I trying to say? The book itself was written with a lot of love, a lot of heart, and a lot of respect and admiration for these guys that came before me. And I think 35, even though $35.99 is steep, and I understand that because I feel that way, and unfortunately Amazon, that's what you have to charge in order to try to compete, if that makes any sense. I didn't want to charge that much, but that was what was suggested. And so, you do all this, and it's just, you have so much respect. Excuse me. You have so much respect and just admiration for these guys that came before you. And, in another life, I like to think that I would have been a great game show host. I mean, I would like to think that I would have it down to a T of how to be the perfect MC. But that's, maybe in another life, right? Maybe that's how it gets to be. So, I don't know, what else can I talk about? I guess I can go a little more personal in my personal life, what can I say? So, like I said, I'm 29. I have I'm a big Eagles fan. I like to watch the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm a big fan of theirs. Enjoy watching Sundays. That's like the big family day, when we're all gathered around the TV watching football. So that's always nice that we get to have that family experience like that. And in many ways too, even like game shows are kind of like that because my parents and I will sit there and we'll watch Card Sharks, or we'll sit there and watch Match Game or Passport Plus or any of these shows that get mentioned in this book. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, I'm very grateful for all of this. What do you call? I feel I feel very blessed to be able to write about this stuff. I really do, and I'm not really necessarily the biggest religious person or anything. I'm nothing like that, not even close. I am a spiritual person. I am a faith-based person, but I'm nothing like other people. But I'm very grateful that I got to write this book, and I'm hoping that all of you will, the 400, and I think you're up to 460 people or something to that effect on here, or at least on YouTube anyway. I'm hoping you all give me a chance, I mean, that's all I'm asking for is a chance. What else do I have to lose? I can only gain from here. I really don't have anything else to lose, but I appreciate all the support. I appreciate the comments and the feedback and all that. And, I'm very grateful for each and every one of you that have watched this tonight. Again, the book is on Amazon. A Guy's Guide to Being a Classic Game Show Fan. I hope you will consider it. And one other thing too, before I forget, I mentioned Gen Z before. There's a lot of references to things that I grew up with. There's a lot of references to Nickelodeon. There's a lot of references to, I wrote something about Toy Story in there. I wrote like all these things that I liked that I grew up with. They all were incorporated into this book as well. And so I'm hoping that all of you will at least give me the chance and, to try to convince, even if you're not a fan, this book was designed for you in mind. This book was designed for you to be not necessarily, I'm not expecting you to become a game show fan, fanatic all of a sudden, but what I am expecting is for you to at least open your eyes and open your ears and say to yourself, maybe these shows are worth it. Maybe they can entertain me for a half hour if I go on YouTube and I sit on the couch or whatever. It's just a thought, though. I mean, who knows? But I figure if I can pass this along to just one person from a future generation, from my generation, or generations after this, that maybe it's worth it. Who knows? So anyway, that's it. I want to wrap this up. It's getting late. It's getting dark. But I appreciate everybody that followed, that watched this, that especially somebody gave me a donation, which again I appreciate, but I don't need that. But I'm very grateful for it. But anyway, I guess I'll talk to you all later. Maybe we'll do this again. We'll go into a little more detail, perhaps, if I get another free moment. Maybe we'll go into a little more detail later on. Who knows? But I appreciate you watching this, and I'm grateful. I really am. I'm very grateful that you're giving me this opportunity. So with that being said, I'm trying to. So with that being said, all right, there we go. So with that being said, I'm going to stop this now. I'm going to sign off. I appreciate all of you doing this, and I hope that you'll consider buying this, that you will consider A Guy's Guide to Being a Classic Game Show Fan. Let me hold it up one more time. Again, a big Eagles fan. Hopefully anybody that's watching this that's an Eagles fan, hopefully you'll buy it just for that, because we all bleed green at the end of the day. At least us in the South Jersey, Philadelphia area. But again, I appreciate you all watching this. I hope you enjoy the book. I appreciate everything that every opportunity that's been given to me about this. I mean, I never would have thought I would have written a book. I didn't think I'd ever read a book, let alone write one. I have to be honest with all of you. But I'm very pleasantly surprised and very grateful for how this opportunity came about. So with that, I'm going to leave. I'm going to sign off now, but I appreciate you all watching. Hopefully we'll do this again in the upcoming days, maybe weeks or whatever, as the book gains more traction, which, I'm pleasantly surprised about how quickly. I mean, I said if I sold one copy outside of my family, I would be happy. And I've already done way more than that. So, you know, have a great night, everybody. God bless everybody. And, take care. Thank you all. Goodbye.